Hello, welcome to this PensamENTs session. Thank you very much for your interest and participation. Okay, we will introduce this type of session. PensamENTs are online webinars organized by ENT to analyze and debate topics of interest and related to the environment. This webinar will last 1 hour with 30-40 minutes of presentation and a final Q&A session. The topic today is about biowaste management and the importance of the quality of this stream and also the interaction with compostable packaging. We would like to share with you some contextual information. Biowaste is key to achieve recycling and landfilling objective. The quality also is essential to optimize the recycling process and obtain quality compost and digestate. It's crucial to effectively return these products to the soil and close the cycle of the organic matter. Currently, more compostable packaging is on the market, so we have also a legal framework that mandates that some items must be compostable, and in some regions, certified compostable bags for biowaste collection are recommended or compulsory. So in this framework, we would like to talk about this topic and especially focus on the context and long experience about it in Italy. So we have today the speaker, Alberto Confalonieri. Okay, is a colleague of us. Alberto is an expert in biowaste management and recycling. His job mainly focused on regulatory and technical implementation of composting and anaerobic digestion, biogas production, and biomethane upgrading. Since 2014, Alberto is a senior staff member of the Italian Composting and Biogas Association, CIC, and chair of its technical committee. Alberto is also chair of the task group of soil organic matter of the European Compost Network and takes part in several working groups of this association. And since 2020, he is an expert of the European Committee for Standardization, dealing with organic soil improvers. So some recommendations. Attendees will be able to ask questions at the end of the session using the raise hand tool or the chat. And please, we ask you to turn off your microphones. So now it's time to give the floor to Alberto. Thank you very much for your participation in this session. We would like to know about this topic from your side. Thank you, and the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Gemma, for the introduction, and thank you to the audience for being connected. Hello, hola a todos. Voy a empezar mi presentación en inglés. Voy a compartir. Tell me if you can see the presentation, and just let me go to the first slide. Gemma, can you see my presentation? Okay, so
okay, perfect.
We can start. Okay, you have already introduced the topic, but just before going into the topic, let me just spend a few words about CIC, the Italian Composting Association, which I am part of since 2016. CIC is the association that gathers, most of the companies and associations that deal with biowaste management in Italy. The aim of CIC is that of pushing forward the implementation and the optimization of the biowaste recycling chain through composting and anaerobic digestion processes. We gather most of the operators that manually deal with the recycling of biowaste. Around 75% of biowaste managed in Italy is managed by companies that are associated to CIC. And then after these few words about my association, I start with the topic that we will deal with in this hour. Since the aim of the webinar is highlighting the connections between the features of separate collected biowaste that we will simplify here in food and garden waste and the performances of the recycling step with a focus on the implication of bioplastics and in general compostable items in the value chain, I will take first advantage of the experience that we have in Italy. So I will start with some highlights about the state of the art of biowaste management in Italy. Then we will go into the topic of biowaste quality, what's quality, what we mean with biowaste quality and why is it important. So we will make some comments, some highlights about the implications of biowaste quality in the biorecycling step. And then we will make a final focus on the role of compostable items in the biowaste recycling chain. So starting with the separate collection of biowaste in Italy, as you can see, Italy has a long-lasting experience in biowaste recycling, in biowaste separate collection. Separate collection started in early 90s with few experiences, and then year after year, the development of separate collection of biowaste grew in Italy. We have come in 2023, the last official data, to collect around 7.4 million tons of biowaste per year, which is a figure. Around over 90% of the population lives in towns and villages in which a separate collection of biowaste, in particular of food waste, is in operation. According to our models and our expectations, we can improve, we can raise a separate collection of biowaste by, let's say, from 0.8 to 1.5 million tons more. So we have an expectation of gathering from 8.3 to 9 million tons per year of collection, which will be the plateau we think that we will reach. Sorry, I had not be beyond. The separate collection in Italy is arranged into separate streams. So we collect independently food waste and garden waste, as you see in these slides. Both fractions are collected according to different separate collection schemes, with the prevailing of door-to-door collection for food waste and bring schemes for green or garden waste. And you see that the collection of food waste is quite unbalanced with respect to green waste. So we collect around 5.5 million tons of food waste against the 2 million tons of green waste separately collected. It is important to stress that almost 40% of separately collected municipal waste is bio-waste. And so in this respect, but we will see it in a later stage this morning, the quality of recycling, the performances of recycling of bio-waste are strategical with respect to the overall recycling targets that the European Union has set for each country. From separate collection to treatment, to recycling, the industrial recycling of bio-waste in Italy runs according to main approaches. The first one, which was born with the separate collection of bio-waste, is composting, that you see on the left. So an entirely aerobic process with the of degradation, of mineralization, and rearrangement of the organic matter, with the final product, which is compost. To a later stage, I mean, since early 2000s ongoing, for several reasons, mainly due to the granting schemes for the production of renewable energy, the anaerobic digestion took ground in Italy, but it took ground in a particular way. So not replacing, but implementing the composting process, which is being replaced in the first stage, in the active oxidation step, with the anaerobic step, which allows both to produce the biogas, which is then turned into either electricity, heat, or upgraded to biomethane, and we digestate, mixed with the garden waste, because of course garden waste is not anaerobically digested because of its organic characteristics. So digestate and green waste are mixed together and fed to a composting stage, which again allows to produce compost. So in any case, the final product of the process is compost. And in terms of numbers, how much waste is treated according to one or the other option? If composting, as I said, was the starting, the fundamental process which accompanied the growth of separate collection, anaerobic digestion took ground, and in year by year, it drove the attention of most of the operators. So in the end, and currently, the situation in terms of biomass treated by one or the other process is the one that you see in this graph, when you see that 60% of the overall organic waste treated by the plants are treated according to integrated processes, anaerobic digestion followed by composting. And this is more true for bio-waste, so green and food waste, because 65% of bio-waste is treated according to integrated processes, and once more, 75% of food waste are treated according to integrated processes. And I stress it because thinking to the quality topic, when we reflect about the implications of waste quality in the recycling efficiency, we must think, in Italy at least, mainly to the integrated processes. And that's why I'm stressing it to you. I will fly on this slide because it's just the overall mass balance of the bio-waste, or maybe better, organic waste management in Italy, inputs and outputs. I just highlight what's on the bottom left of the slide. So the final product, which is compost, we produced in 2023 around 1.9 million tons of compost, derived 65% from composting and 35% of anaerobic digestion, which is the other way around with respect to the relative weight of the two processes in terms of biomass treated. So the only final product is compost currently. Compost, which since 1998, but with following upgradings and implementations, is contained into our national regulation on fertilizer. So compost is an end of waste in Italy and is regulated, its characteristics and these standards are regulated by the national regulation on fertilizers. You can see here the all the parameters and limits that compost has to comply with according to our regulation. There are agronomical properties, moisture, pH, carbon, organic carbon, and so on and so forth. But I want to share with you and to stress with you all the parameters related to the environmental performances of the product, because compost has to comply with limits on heavy metals, with microbiological parameters in order to be sure that the process has been successful in hygienizing the mass, organic contaminants, and macroscopic impurities such as plastic, glass, and metals, which have to comply with these limits. So I stressed the topic of compost quality because this is strictly related with the quality of inputs and with the quality of the process, of course, because when we deal with the quality of biowaste, one should consider the aim of the recycling process, which is at least that of maximizing the production of a compliant recycled output, which is compost in this case, while minimizing the production of rejects from the recycling process. So I we can say that two main categories of pollutants can be considered in this respect, with different implications in the efficiency of the system. The presence of most micro pollutants, heavy metals, persistent organic compounds, such as PCB, PAH, and so on and so forth, they cannot be taken by the recycling process and has many implications on the final product. But micropollution has been successfully tackled by separate collection and its rules. That separate collection has managed to divert from biowaste source of contaminations that are associated to other fractions, batteries, chemical products. So most of the potentially harmful chemical contaminants were successfully managed by the implementation of separate collection. We will more deal with the other category of pollutants, which are the physical impurities, because so the other category, which comes from all the materials and items that are improperly introduced by citizens, above all in the waste, in the food waste stream. Monitoring the qualitative and quantitative features of these impurities is a priority to understand what the implications are on the recycling process, and that's why we open now a focus on the above all on the physical impurities present in food waste. I was saying that assessment is the first step. How can these micro impurities that we usually call non-compostable or non-compatible materials be assessed? The main instrument, and this is one thing that we share with the Spanish colleagues, is a composition analysis that is performed on samples of waste collected. We have provided in Italy a method, and likewise in other countries, a method for assessing the quality of food waste and biowaste in general through composition analysis. This method provides rules for getting a representative sample of 150 kilograms for the entire content of a delivery, which is typically of several tons. Then from the 150 kilograms sample, this sample of 150 kilograms is manually sorted by recognizing and separating the compostable and non-compostable or non-compatible items, and each fraction is weighted in order to provide the output of the analysis. So these are examples of the non-composting items that we can find in the food waste fraction. But dealing with the outputs of the analysis, the output is both the amount of non-compostable materials that affected the sample and the composition of non-compostable category. And both information are quite important for assessing the quality, for determining the final quality of the material. In this case, and I show you here the average of more than 1.3 thousand samples that we have analyzed, we as CIC have analyzed throughout the country, throughout Italy in 1 year. You can see on the left how non-compostable are distributed. And you see that the main fractions that we have identified in terms of relative weight are plastics, because the first two of the list are plastics. So plastic bags improperly used for the collection of waste, and other plastics that were present into the collection bags. And then nappies, non-compostable pet litter, because we have many pets hosted in our houses, and other non-compostable materials, which range from glass, metals, ceramic pottery, and so many other items relatively low in in the presence each one, but 34% in total. But the quantity of non-compostable material determines the overall quality of waste and its attitude to be recycled with a high or low yield. CHIC, in this sense, CHIC has proposed a classification of food waste into these 6 quality classes, depending on the amount of non-compostable materials. And you see here the distribution of the quality classes in which the 1.3 thousand analyses we performed in 2022, in this case, were set. And you see that luckily most of the samples fell in the 2 best categories, which are those with non-compostable material presence below 5%. Unfortunately, we are going towards a worsening in this moment of the quality of food waste. This is something we are addressing here in Italy. For the reasons are several. I'm not going into these details now, but if you want to discuss it afterwards, I will be happy to do it. And so, on average, more than 50% of the samples within the 5% of non-compostable materials content. Not going too much into other details about separate collection and the quality of waste, let's go in the other side, on the other side of the barrier, so in the industrial recycling step. So let's see what are the implications, what are the possible implications of biowaste quality in the recycling step. Going briefly into the layouts of the 2 approaches I was mentioning before, so composting and anaerobic digestion. What I want to stress here that if the core of the processes of transformation of the organic matter is a biological process, aerobic, anaerobic, or integrated in the different cases, what's worth stressing here is that the biological process can be or must be preceded and followed by mechanical processes that we call pretreatments, in case they precede the biological process, or refining if they follow the biological process. These are these processes have different meanings. They are aimed at reducing the particle size of waste, in the case of green waste, for example. They are meant at separating the bags from their content in case of food waste. They are meant, and above all, they are meant at separating the non-compostable materials we dealt in the previous slides from the organic material, either before or after the processes. And here come the problems, and here comes the interaction between waste quality and recycling performances. But let's see in more details how are the pretreatments and post-treatment steps performed through just some pictures, some photographs. These are examples of the different types of equipment utilized. For example, for bags opening, soft shredding is the preferred option in order to remove bags content, trying not to cut plastics, bubble plastic into small pieces, and in general to preserve the integrity both of the organic fraction and of the impurities for a successive removal. Then about the screening with plain screens or dry screens, pulping, pressing, squeezing, all these equipments are aimed at removing the non-compostable materials from in the pretreatment steps of the process. And as far as the anaerobic digestion process is concerned, even and always at preparing a clean, homogeneous, and organic pulp to be introduced in the digester. But what I want to stress here is that all the equipments work on separation principles as far as the separation of non-compostable materials is concerned. They work on separation principles which are either dimensional or according to the density or the plasticity properties of the material, of the materials. But none of these equipments are able to separate non-compostable materials only. And the same goes for the refining step. So at the end of the process, when we have to deal with the need of separating the gross compost from the non-compostable materials which are remained after the process, the biological process, again, these equipments, screenings for separating compost from gross woody material and metals removal approaches are effective, but not 100% efficient. So again, as for the pretreatment equipments, none of the machines is able to separate non-compostable materials only. And this is something very important for the organic biowaste recycling industry, because the overall results of the pretreatment and refining post-treatments is the generation of rejects to be disposed of, which are made of a mixture of non-compostable material and organic materials. The fine-tuning of the pretreatments and refining tries to combine the minimization of rejects with the maximization of contraries removal in search of the best trade-off. So we have to make as much compost as possible, but as much clean compost as possible. And this is the trade-off we have to search for. So reducing the number of steps involved is another issue, because the more you handle the waste, the more you run the risk of reducing too much the size the non-compostable materials, thus increasing the efforts to divert them from the final product. What you can see in these photos that represent examples of rejects produced by different plants in different steps of the process is that impurities are mixed with organic material, as we saw before. In order to evaluate the efficiency of a recycling process, we have turned this principle into a coefficient that we call dragging factor. The dragging factor is a number which measures how much is the amount of rejects that you produce for removing 1 unit of non-compostable materials. So the higher the number, the worse is the situation. Of course, to determine the coefficient, this dragging factor, you must know the mass balance of the process alongside with the amount of non-compostable material that affects the inputs. So if you know these these parameters, you are able to determine the dragging factor. Just to give you an example of how the calculations are made, with a dragging factor of 2.75, which is the average dragging factor of around 40 plants that we assessed last year. With 5% of non-compostable material affecting food waste, the expected production of rejects is 13.5%. And this is just to allow you to better understand the meaning of this dragging factor, which is our core parameter to assess the efficiency of the recycling, the industrial recycling process. But why taking care of the rejects? Why taking care of of the rejects produced for at least 2 or maybe 3 reasons. The first one is the environmental. Disposing organic material means a potential generation of greenhouse gases in a landfill, or at least means the necessity of adding an environmental burden to the industrial management of the rejects produced. The second reason is a regulatory reason. As I told at the beginning of my presentation, we were dealing with the fact that recycling organic waste is strategic to meeting the European targets of municipal waste recycling, since we represent 40% of the separate collected municipal waste. So the more you are efficient in recycling biowaste, the more you are able to meet the recycling targets, which were set by the European Union with the final limits of 65% by the end of 2035. So environmental, regulatory, but and this is much important for the industrial sector, an economical reason. So the third one is that the third reason is upon the recycling plant. And from this simulation we have made some years ago, you can see that the higher the amount of non-compostable materials, the higher are the costs for removing the non-compostable materials, either before or after the biological process. And these costs are related both to the energetic costs of the equipment that work for removing the non-compostable materials, and to the costs which are in blue, in the blue side of in the blue area of this graph, the costs for the disposal of the rejects. And these costs were true some years ago. At the moment, currently, sorry, I have not upgraded this model, but with the current prices for the disposal of rejects in Italy, the costs, at least for disposal, would be now 2 or 3 times higher than what we are seeing in this graph. So the economical reason, maybe in this moment for the industrial recycling sector, is the most important, because it directly impacts on the daily activity of the composting and AD processes. Oh, sorry. I thought I have introduced. I forgot that I had introduced the updated situation in Italy, where you can see that costs are much higher now for the disposal step of the rejects produced. After discussing about the quality and the quality implications on the recycling of biowaste, let's see in a nutshell, so in few words, something about the compostable topic. So the topic of the implication of compostable items, above all bioplastics, but not only, in the biowaste recycling systems. One of the strategies for promoting the improvement of biowaste separate collection, both on the side of increasing the separate collection rates and the quality of biowaste streams, is acting on the bags utilized for the collection of biowaste. In particular, replacing conventional plastic bags with compostable ones. That's why in Italy we have introduced since 2010 an obligation of biowaste separate collection by means of compostable bags only, or better, without any bags, or in case you need a bag to collect your biowaste, you must use only the compostable option, either bioplastics or paper bags. Since 2012, Italy has introduced further restriction on the put into commerce of plastic shoppers and ultralight plastic shoppers in a later stage. And more recently, other compostable items that we can group here in rigid compostable items category have been introduced in the market, and since being associated to food and beverage, most of them at least, they can give a contribution in driving more organic residues to the biowaste streams without affecting its quality. To give you some numbers, currently bioplastics in food waste represent, because I say in food waste because bioplastics are and compostable items in general are concentrated in food in the food waste stream, represent around 3.2% in fresh weight. So in the overall composition of food waste, or 1.4% if we consider it on a dry matter content. Paper bags, which are the other compostable items utilized, they are locally prevalent, above all when dealing with the bags utilized for the collection of food waste. But at national level, they represent just less than 0.5% compostable bags. If I'm not wrong, we're talking about 0.2, 0.3%. So the vast majority of compostable bags are represented by bioplastic bags, actually. When it comes to compostable bags' impact in the recycling system, we can surely say that they have managed to counteract the presence of conventional fossil plastics in the separate collected food waste. As long as the recycling industry was based on composting, no questions about their management, their successful management in the process, because all compostables sent to the biological process. Of course, I'm thinking to properly manage compostable processes and lasting up to 3 months, managing to increase the temperatures during the process at given levels for given durations. So the composting system is ultimately able to successfully degrade, disintegrate, or integrate in compost the compostable items throughout the process. But as I told you before, and as I have stressed in terms of relative numbers, since early 2000s, anaerobic digestion and integrated technologies have grown, have increased in importance in our country, and now by far exceed the composting only option. And this poses two possible problems. This poses two possible problems because first possible problem is a biological one, because differently from the composting process, the AD1, with the few differences between the technological approach, so dry processes or wet processes, thermophilic or mesophilic, single or multi-stage approaches, all these processes present scarce or negligible degradation rates of the compostable plastics, above all degradation. But if you think to the layout of a industrial process of integration of AD plus composting process, this is not the main issue. Why this is not the main problem? Because if you look at the process, if you look at the continuous red arrow, you see the most typical, the most frequent layouts layouts that see before the anaerobic process the pretreatment steps which actually stops most of the compostable items together with the non-compostable materials. And that's why even though all the compostable items that manage to pass through the pretreatment step without being diverted from the organic pulp, which are successfully degraded, maybe not in the anaerobic step, but in the following composting process. Since most of the non-compostable materials are stopped in the pretreatment step, we have to deal with this problem. This was a more in-depth, a further elaboration about the implication of anaerobic digestion, because as I told you, most of the anaerobic digestion processes generate rejects which are rich in non-compostable materials, but this is true for most processes apart from the dry batch anaerobic digestion processes, which are the only ones which do not require a pretreatment step. So all the biowaste which has been introduced into the plant is fed to the anaerobic digester, which is in this case a biocell, an anaerobic biocell. But apart from this dry batch anaerobic digestion steps, the dry batch anaerobic digestion process, the other processes, the other technologies require pretreatments, and pretreatments generate these rejects, which are full of organic material and compostable items. But what we have tried to do is to turn into this potential problem in a potential opportunity. Or better, we have tried to understand how to best manage these pretreatment rejects in order either to increase the amount of product or at least to reduce the overall amount of rejects which are ultimately disposed outside the facility. And so you can see here three possible options for optimizing the recycling process, managing the rejects generated from the pretreatment. First approach, a process, let's say a kind of composting process just occurring on the rejects generated by the pretreatment. So biostabilizing or biodrying the rejects generated, which are rich in organics and are rich in compostable plastics, we can manage to oxidize the organic matter, including the compostable items, dry the material, and so ultimately to reducing the amount of final rejects which have to be sent outside the plant. Of course, this requires energy and requires space, so this is one possible disadvantage from this approach. Another approach can be that of try to sort the pretreatment rejects in order to try to separate some of the organics, including the compostable fraction, which can be introduced not in the anaerobic digestion step, but in the composting step. This would be an optimal solution. One of the problems is that, as you can imagine, the pretreatment rejects are very sticky, are very moist, and so sorting, I'm thinking here to technological approaches like near-infrared technologies, can find it very difficult to detect and isolate and divert organics from non-compostable materials. But studies are in course, researches are in course, pilot plants, pilot lines have been tried in some plants, and so this is a possible other approach. Of course, the compostable fraction would be, in this case, driven to the aerobic post-composting step, while the non-compostable fractions can be, again, biostabilized, biodried, and then reduced in volume and amount, and then disposed. A third option, which is adopted by some of our facilities, is to directly take all the pretreatment rejects that have been generated and to drive them to the post-composting step. In this case, you save all the organic materials and the compostable items which were present in the rejects, and so you can optimize the efficiency of recycling the organic part. But one problem is that you are reintroducing even all the non-compostable materials in the process, and so you will have to deal with these non-compostable materials when in the final refining process. So this will mean that when screening the compost, you will have an overscreen fraction that will be rich not only in the gross woody material, which can be recirculated in the process, but it will be rich in non-compostable materials that will generate potential problems, or at least the higher frequency at which these overscreens will have to be disposed. So, as you can see, we have several potential solutions, several optimizations approaches. None of them is perfect, but you can try to balance these solutions. You can, in order to find the best fine-tuning according to your specific situation. And I'm coming here to the conclusion, and so I try here to recap what I have shared with you along this presentation, starting with the beginning. So I read with you and comment a bit. First of all, we in Italy have a very well developed biowaste management sector. Most of the biowaste is being separately collected. We still have a few million inhabitants that lack to be connected to the separate collection system, but we are going towards a plateau of the expected generation of biowaste in food and garden waste in the process. The quality of biowaste that we have focused in this presentation, in particular on the minimization of macroscopic impurities, is crucial, both from, we have seen, an environmental, regulatory, and economic point of view. And the key is the reduction of the rejects sent of disposal during the final recycling process without sacrificing the quality of the final product, which is the compost. The Italian biowaste sector has dealt with the compostable items for more than, I would say, 25 years at least. Compostable bags in particular, which are the main compostable fraction present into our recycling system, replacing the conventional plastic bags, have supported to improve the biowaste quality. The composting technologies are able, if properly performed, are able to completely degrade or integrate certified compostable items, so no problems with the aerobic-only processes. But since the growth and the prevailing of anaerobic technologies in our system, this has introduced potential problems or aspects to deal with in the updated recycling system, in particular when dealing with the management of the pretreatment, the pretreatment rejects that are generated whenever you have to remove all the contraries before the biological process. And as we saw in the last minutes, the compostable items diverted from the biological process can be further processed in order to reduce the over amount of and impact of these of the rejects, and ultimately to increase the recycling efficiency. And I think that's all from my side for what I wanted to share with you. But if I have the time, Gem, I haven't looked at the clock.
Please.
If I have, okay, 1 minute more, I just wanted to share with you some materials that can be added if you want to go more in depth of this topic. I just wanted to share with you this project, this BioBest project, which is a live project in which we are involved as partner. We as CHIC are involved as partner, in which ENT is the leading partner, and in which other partners are the European Compost Network, Zero Waste Europe, and ACR+. This is a project whose ultimate meaning, whose ultimate goal is that of collecting all the information and providing all the inputs ultimately to both to the stakeholder and to the European Commission for improving the overall efficiency of the bio-waste supply chain, with the final goal of producing high quality products, high quality compost and digestate, optimizing the chain. I just wanted to stress that the project, of course, takes advantage of or has produced and is producing several outputs, among which there are guidelines and papers. For the purposes of the conversation we've had so far, I just wanted to stress that we have provided and are available online, and this is the QR code you can refer to for going and uptake and download the relevant contents. I wanted to stress that we have provided guidelines for the separate collection of bio-waste, separate guidelines for the production of quality compost and digestate, and another product I suggest you to look at, download and read, that is perfectly focused on the conversation we've had this morning. We produced a paper relating to standards for bio-waste entering organic recycling processes. So reading, you will see that many of the topics, many of the tips that I have faced during this conversation are more in depth dealt with in these documents. So I invite you to read the documents. I hoped to have been sufficiently clear in my presentation, and I am now open to your questions or comments about what we have shared so far.
Thank you very much, Alberto. Very interesting presentation, and it's important to know this internal management of this bio-waste in combination with compostable packaging and items. And now, if you want, we can go for the Q&A session. So if there is any question, you can raise your hand or use the chat. Okay, I can start with one question, because I have some doubts about the future scenarios where we can have a lot of packaging, compostable packaging, that maybe can be collected with bio-waste. What will happen then? Which is the option and the way to treat this future scenario, especially because we have a legal framework that are including some mandatory items, no?
Yes, yes. You mean with the packaging regulation that has been published today or yesterday, I don't know when.
Yes.
But coming to the point, first, I start with the situation in Italy, because I think that Italy is the more prominent country in Europe in terms of bio-waste product generation, and so potential impacts on the bio-waste recycling sector. As you have seen by the numbers I've shared with you, we are talking about 3% of compostable items in the bio-waste, and comparing the amounts of compostable items in food waste with the amount of compostable items put into commerce in Italy, I can share with you that at least 70% of the compostable items have been collected with in the stream of food waste. So this 3% could be possibly increased but not so much. So one answer is this one. Another thing I want to comment on your question is we have a critical view on compostable items, because I hope that I have stressed enough how compostable bags have helped in improving the bio-waste and replacing, above all, plastic bags. But we are not indiscriminately in favor of all types of compostable items. So our focus is on compostable items that can help to improve the quality of bio-waste, so replacing, for example, plastic bags, and/or can help to drive more organic waste into the bio-waste recycling stream. So we are in particularly focused and in favor of compostable items that are associated to food and beverages. So these are the boundaries of our going beyond these boundaries. I think that would be a problem, could be a problem, because thinking to items that items possibly associated to, for example, chemicals or other types of pollutants would be a problem, not only because of the increasing amount of compostable items in bio-waste, but because of these chemical pollutants that we have just briefly discussed about in one slide, but they, in this case, compostable items could be driver for chemical pollution. So we stay strictly within the boundaries that we have defined and we have supporting that we are supporting in our market.
Thank you. And maybe Ignacy can intervene.
Hello, Ignacy.
Hi, Alberto. Nice to hearing from you. Thanks for accepting this invitation. I have a very quick question in relation to extended producer responsibility related to compostable packaging. In Spain, compostable packaging has been part of the regular extended producer responsibility schemes, along with normal plastic packaging. I think in Italy the situation is a bit different, and here I would say that mostly so far extended producer responsibility has been a barrier for compostable packaging, since tariffs have been set quite high. But I want to understand whether in Italy, going in a different direction, EPR has been a facilitator or a barrier for the introduction of compostable packaging. Thanks.
Thanks for the question. How can I reply? The situation in Italy was like yours until 2020, 2021 maybe, because the system the compostable packaging producers were under the plastic packaging producers consortium. But the overall production and recycling of compostable items was mature before the start of the new consortium, because since 2021 we have a dedicated plastic recycling consortium to compostable plastics, which is BioRepack, which for sure has managed to help to increase the amount of the collection of data, and has put some order in the compostable packaging recycling. But this in a situation of in a market which was already mature under the point of view of the interaction between the collection of compostable items and the recycling step. So we still have, there is room for improvement, and one interesting thing that the BioRepack consortium has introduced is the possibility of fine-tuning the amount of money that is sent back to the municipalities, depending on how much compostable packaging are driven through the biowaste streams, with the quality, with the overall quality of biowaste. So to make it simpler, the amount, the revenues that are sent back to the municipalities for the amount of compostable packagings that are sent to the recycling, the composting or anaerobic digestion facilities can be higher or lower depending on how clean is the food waste stream. So the higher the percentage of non-compostable items, the lower is the amount of money that a municipality has back. So theoretically, this should help to improve the quality of food waste. But as I told you before, and that's something that I have not gone too much in depth during the presentation, unfortunately, we are assisting to a worsening of the quality of biowaste in Italy. But I would not put the blame on compostable sector. This is a more there is a more complex situation made of different possible, coming from different possible sources. One, and the main one, we think that is the lack of communication. You know, the awareness campaigns that we know that are very important to preserve the quality of food waste are being submitted to the population with the lower frequencies than before, and that's this is maybe the main problem that is causing the worsening of the biowaste quality. And in this respect, we hope that the activity of BioRepack consortium will be even that of with our support, because we work together for some activities, is that more money will be invested in awareness campaigns in the future.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions? Let me say
There's a question
something.
in the chat, Gemma.
Oh, there is a question in the chat. Okay, sorry. Thank you. I understood, Rosaria. You can intervene if you want. Yes, Rosaria, please. The floor is yours.
Well, for matter of time, I
Okay.
prepared to write the chat. My question is, I understood that the compostable items are without any problem compost in the post-composting phase when you are considering the integrated plants of digestion, anaerobic digestion plus composting. But my question is there any problem for the anaerobic digestion phase? Because I understand that for composting is not a problem, according to what I understood. But is there any problem that is creating for the presence of this compostable item in anaerobic digestion?
We have not experienced problems, for example, with the microbiological activity. If you are meaning possible problems of interaction between compostable items and the microflora that is digesting the organic waste. So there is not an antibiotic effect. The only problem is that compostable plastics do not degrade, so they behave like more or less like plastics. So they could physically replace the space inside the digester that is occupied by the organic material under the anaerobic digestion process. But if they manage to be extracted from the digester, we, on the other hand, have experienced that the chemical attack that the compostable items have undergone from the separate collection and even in the anaerobic digester helps to increase the speed of degradation in the final composting step. So even though the compostable items have not degraded in the digester, they have been attacked physically, degraded, and the final composting step is easier and quicker. But to come back to your question, no, we have not experienced problems with anaerobic digestion related to the presence of compostable plastics in the digester.
Okay. Thank you for the detailed explanation. So we have to close the session. And thank you very much, Alberto, for this interesting information and insights. We also want to thank the audience for being today with us. And please stay tuned because we are organizing some pensaments about deposit refund schemes. The first one on February 26 with Clarissa Morowski from Reloop platform, talking about deposit refund schemes trends shaping Europe. And also the second one, March the 5th, with Victor Moralo from Ecija Legal Buffet, talking about legal conditions, obligations, and protection actions for the implementation of these deposit refund schemes in Spain. So please follow up these upcoming sessions, and thank you very much for all of you, and have a nice day. Thank you. See you soon.
Thank you. Enjoy.